All right, guys. Today I'm joined by Jim Korenscharff, the CEO of Response Media Group, a data-driven agency helping brands turn customer insights into results. With over 30 years in the game, Jim has led RMG from direct mail all the way through to cutting edge ad tech. Jim, great to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be here.
Not my pleasure, my pleasure. Thanks for coming on. So jumping straight into things, Jim, from direct mail to ad tech, that is a wide scope. And I can't imagine the amount of technologies and different things you had to go through. Would you mind giving us like the 3,000 foot overview of that journey and what that looked like for you?
So I'm proud to say the firm actually will turn 39 in October of this year. And so I've not been here for all 39 of those years, but it is interesting when the firm started, there were only two direct to consumer channels. There was telemarketing and direct mail. And telemarketing, I think you're probably too young to remember this, but it used to be the phone call came at 6 o'clock and everybody was like in the middle of dinner. Don't answer that phone, right? It's a telemarketing call. So it spawned its own set of federal legislation, but um, we were very heavy into direct mail. The one thing over all those years, Chris, that has not changed for us is a focus on data analytics. So we have very much been a below the line agency. So we don't do radio, TV, billboards. We are, will continue to be very much focused on taking the data, the analytics side, predictive modeling, customer segmentation, using those below the line advertising techniques, which I think are foundational to the success. Certainly, you can't choose something that you don't know exists. So awareness is critically important. All of the above the line advertising methodologies are, incredibly important. However, what we've kind of been forced to change with over the years as an industry, not just we as a firm, has been the shifting sands of channels. There were two before. I probably, if you gave me, a minute, I could probably come up with a dozen to 20 that we use now. And that doesn't even include things like influencers. Back in 1986, when our firm was started, if you had told somebody that people will get paid to be able to promote someone else's product on the internet, they'd be like, that's crazy. So, data is still at the center of everything that we do. Telemarketing still occurs, but now it's used in probably a completely different adoption, like outbound political, more than anything else, quite honestly, and fundraising. And direct mail, believe it or not, a lot of people think it's gone the way of the buggy whip, but direct mail in certain audience segments is still a high lead generation. You and I probably could both think of a lot of varieties. When a new doctor's office opens, what do you get? A postcard in the mail, right? Announcing a new practice or a veterinary practice, or I had a new really state-of-the-art car wash that opened from me. It got a really nice postcard with a discounted coupon associated. That stuff still works. And so we have clients that still use direct mail. But for us, the foundational aspect of it is data. Data hasn't changed. The names of what we call data right now, you probably can't read anything in marketing where the third sentence hasn't included AI in some regard. And, it is amazing to me what the capability is. But if we rewind 36, 39 years ago, it was called big data or data analytics or predictive modeling or machine learning, right? So the names have changed, the practice have not. The technology has certainly dramatically developed, but the deployment and application has not. So we think, if anything, we're as relevant now as we were ever in our 39 years.
39 years. That's really impressive for an agency. I think in today's day and age, not many agencies even make it past year one, two, or three.
Right. That's right. Yeah, no. And we've had a lot of folks that have touched the agency. We have, to your point, outlived a number of our peers, and unfortunately seen some firms that didn't make it. Especially the 08, 09, 10 recession was tough on a lot of us in this business. It's hard to convince people to spend money when the economy has really got a headwind against you. And COVID was very difficult for us. We have a large percentage of our client base that's in the travel and tourism and hospitality space. And again, similarly, when the federal government is mandating you to stay at home, it's hard to get destinations to spend money on marketing when people can't leave their house. So We've absolutely been thrown some curveballs, but as I used to have an old sales person who said, it's easy to hit the fastball. Success is driven by the folks that can hit the curve.
That's actually a really good analogy. I like that. And so, Jim, you how long have you been a part of the agency?
Yeah, so I joined the firm back in 1994, so it was 8 years old. A little bit of our history: we actually sold in 2000 to Dan Snyder, probably better known as the owner of the Washington Redskins than he was for marketing agencies. And then he spun us off to be part of the Havas Group, a very large French-based holding company in Paris. We kind of got lost along the way because of our size and the fact that we were kind of the redheaded stepchild in a family of blonde beauties. Everybody else was above the line advertising partners and some phenomenal general agencies. And so they really couldn't quite figure out what to do with us or how the best way to use us. And so we hung around, but eventually kind of bought back the interest in the company to take ourselves private. And so I left from a little after 2001 and came back in 2013.
Oh, wow. And so now you're currently operating as the CEO of the firm, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Got it. Okay. And for other agency owners and, marketing firms that are listening, what would you say was the one growth lever that has been or made the biggest difference for you guys in the last 5 or 10 years?
Well, I would say, I don't know that there's one. Let me give you a couple. But I would, as I mentioned at the outset, we've never really taken our eye off of what has been what we believe our unique value proposition, right? And that is that having data, data doesn't get old in the sense of it's still relevant. We first started in the financial services industry in the late 80s and early 90s. And the reason being is that banks, credit unions, savings and loans, when they used to exist, recognized the power of data. They used it to recognize, well, some data we have, some data we don't have. And what we don't have, we need to go out and either purchase, or we need to figure out a way to get a partner to the table that can help us to build predictive models. And our growth was on the back of being able to say, look, if Chris Sanchez is a really good client because of his age, his income, presence of children, the car he drives, home value, whatever, how do we find more Chris Sanchez's? And banks did that long before predictive analytics and customer segmentation was in vogue. And so we have not really strayed from that. So if there is one single thing, I would say that we have adopted with the explosion of availability of data. Back in the day, you had to buy data and it wasn't as prevalent. Now we've got folks like my daughter who are very happy to offer up all kinds of information about themselves publicly in a public environment. And I'm of a different generation, but the fact that we now have access to self-reported behaviors and interests, we know what magazine you subscribe to, we know what type of car you drive, we know what your purchase behavior is because you've told us, right? You've offered that information. We're able to build a much more robust profile of individuals so that when we're doing marketing and advertising, we can make it much more effective because it's tailored at you and not at everybody that we think looks like you, acts like you, has the same interests as you. It's actually a one-to-one relationship. And that hasn't changed for us.
That's interesting. So just keeping the fundamentals true and sticking to your guns has been your superpower, essentially.
It has. And, I have a lot of friends that are in the media buying business, and they've been around for 30 years or more. And primarily because they had a methodology that they adopted. They created great customer work. They were able to get strong testimonials, referrals. They had a great network. And they leveraged all of those things to continue to be relevant. We've tried to do the same thing. And the advantage is data really hasn't changed. It's never been sexy necessarily, but it is, again, as I said, it's a foundational underpinning to the success of anyone. And I think what the advancement in technology has allowed us to do, Chris, is, Google Analytics is 20 years old. And when we didn't have anything, Google Analytics was just like this bright, shining object that allowed us all to say, oh my gosh, all of that money I'm going to put in digital, I actually can measure it. Now that it's 20 years old, ad technology has developed way beyond that. And so we've been fortunate in 2020 to be able to launch some proprietary technology techniques that are focused on identity resolution and recognizing you've got a delicate path to manage there in terms of what's PII, what's GDPR compliant, CCPA compliant, all the other 11 states that have a higher threshold of compliance and regulatory requirements. But as long as you are understanding that landscape, there's a lot of data out there now that allows us to engage at that individual level. And so we feel like that's made marketing way more effective than it ever was before. And, anytime I read surveys, I don't know about you, but anytime I read surveys and people say, do you mind getting personalized marketing? No, I don't have any kids in my house that require diapers. So being exposed to diaper ads or diaper offers is not relevant for me, right? I will click and open anything that is relevant to me that I can engage with and is going to make my life better or it provides an opportunity for enjoyment or something along those lines.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when it is more relevant, the click-through rates, I'm sure, are much higher
Absolutely.
converting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was fascinated years ago in that time that I was away from RMG, did some work with a client who was very heavily involved in customer segmentation and database development in the cable business. And so in the early 2000s, cable was at the forefront of recognizing that, hey, and this is back when they had a lion's share of the market, we've got a set-top box in front of everybody's TV. And in order for them to watch TV, they got to turn our set-top box on. And yes, we can get publicly information, and we know Chris lives at 123 Main Street, and we know approximately how old he is and some of those types of things. But we actually have his viewing behavior, and we know what ads what programs he watches, and we know when he clicks off to watch something else. And a lot of people never really thought about that, and I didn't really think about it either until you started to realize that if we, took a cul-de-sac of 5 homes, there's no way that all 5 homes of those looks alike, right? Whether that's ethnicity, whether that's age, whether that's income, whether that's presence of children, the type of car they drive. And cable started to recognize that the 5 of us in our cul-de-sac could all be watching the exact same program at the exact same time, and we could each be served different ads based on all of our demographics. And then the light bulb went off, and I was like, holy cow, if that technology exists, it's only going to broaden its adoption. And that's basically where we are today. That's what social has allowed us to be able to do.
And so you mentioned technology a couple times, Jim, and you guys have some proprietary technology. How are you leveraging that? And how does AI play a part in all of that?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be the first to tell you that I understand AI at a surface level. I'm amazed by the capability. I have a son who's 21 and majoring in data analytics. And so he probably knows infinitesimally more about it than I do and uses it more than I do. That said, our proprietary technology is in the identity resolution space. And one of the things that we're able to do is place a pixel in the header of a website and we can de-anonymize the site visitor. Now, that comes with consent on the part of the user, right? You're being exposed to the fact that your site experience is being tracked. You can opt out. So we're talking about full compliance, GDPR, CCPA, and all other state requirements. Let's presume that's table stakes, right? And so for those that opt in, we now understand what pages you're viewing, Chris. We know what ad you clicked on to get there. Was it an organic search? Was it a meta post, an Instagram post? Was it an ad in the digital version of the Rob Report or, what Southern Living? We actually have those ability to capture that UTM string behind that ad. And now we're reporting to our clients with the utmost visibility that's never been able to be obtained before. Here's all the visitors you were on your site last night. Here's the pages that they viewed. And by the way, Jim lives at 123 Main Street. He's 55 years old. He makes this amount of money. He has this many kids, drives this type of car. Here's an opportunity for you to engage at that one-to-one level with Jim in an outbound communication because he's granted you permission to engage with him. And so while Google Analytics, as I said, is great, my old business partner used to say in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So Google Analytics is great, but now we have 2 eyes and the ability to truly resolve not only individuals on the website. The other thing that we can do is building geoframes and geofencing. We have the ability to know when Chris showed up in downtown Lahaina because we built a geoframe and his mobile device was in his pocket and he has location tracking granted. And so now we really can map that customer journey to understand. Chris was thinking about making a trip to Hawaii. He went on the website to look at what hours the market was open in Lahaina. Then he actually showed up 3 months later. So we can see what his booking window was like. We can see what pages he viewed. We know what his interests are. He's looking for lodging. He's looking for restaurants. Let's serve that relevant information. Back to the point you just made a couple minutes ago, clicks and open rates are off the chart when you are serving someone relevant messaging that's specific to what they were already looking for. And it's not creepy.
Jim, given that you have access to this power of technology, we have 2 eyes now, we can see, we have the data, we have the analytics. where are you like, where is your firm going? Like, where are you guys taking this? What does the trajectory look like for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Well, I think the number one thing we are trying to help clients with is twofold. Number one, it's validating their ad spend. So what we find on every engagement we get into, Chris, is at the outset, let's take the tourism sector. As I said earlier, we do a lot of work in that sector. So if someone says, well, I'm looking for households with women who have kids who make over $100,000. And we're like, great, let's track it. We'll put the pixel in it. Let's see if that's the audience that you're driving. And lo and behold, we come back and we find that they have a preponderance of men over 65 making under $75,000. And it's like, goodness, those are like diametrically opposed to the audience we're going after. Now, I'm not casting aspersions at their media partner or the media buying and the strategy that they have. I'm just telling you that the people that are coming to your website and clicking on your ads are not the audience that you want. So does that mean that we want to get around the table with the agency partner and we want to say something is not working with the imagery, something's not working with the creative elements or the copywriting, something's not working with the particular media buys that we're executing, but there is a disconnect here. So we just want to be the partner that provides the intelligence to make all of the ad spending more effective, right? So for us, it's about helping to measure ROI and drive what we call ROAS, right? A return on ad spend. So if we can help a client be more relevant, if we can build validation, if we can confirm audience targeting, we think we're going to be really successful. And we've been very lucky. Our clients have seen significant increases as a result of our engagements. And I have no horse in the race. So I don't care what media you use, right? I don't care if you use an influencer. I don't care if you use direct mail. I don't care if you run TV spots. I don't care if it's connected TV, podcasting. It doesn't matter to me. All I'm about is what is the return on ad spend and what is the ROI? And if it's going this way, it's a good thing. If it's going this way, it's a bad thing. And that's really our focus, right? Is using data to enhance the success and build validation.
Got it. So you guys are collaborating with other agencies and firms as well as your clients or the brands or the companies that are using this data. Am I understanding that correctly?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And what we find there is that I guess like all things in life, some people are a little bit afraid of that. So we have good agency partners and we have less good agency partners. I won't say bad, less enthusiastic. How about that? Our good agency partners recognize, and again, we're being very transparent. So we like to say we play nice in the sandbox. We want everybody. We want in a rising tide, all boats will rise. So if we recognize that the media buys aren't working and we can help the media partner to make sure that ad is resonating and targeting at the right segment, and we're seeing greater click-through rates and we're seeing greater purchase rates, then the agency's going to look great, right? We just want to be kind of the engine in the car. We're not the car. We just want to be the engine in the car that helps get it down the road. Similarly, those that where we don't have as good a relationship are threatened by us and think that, I'm making the bulk most as a small agency owner, I'm making a lot of money off of my media buys. And if, these guys cut me off, it's going to be a bad relationship for us. We're not about that, right? We want to sit at the table and we want to hopefully be a really good steward of the client's money and a good partner of the data that we have access to and share it such that it's only going to make all of us a lot smarter and a lot better.
That makes a lot of sense. And I can see how an agency that understands that there's a gap in the service that they're providing, if they're looking to other partners like yourselves to fill that gap, they can actually do their job much more efficiently, keep the client longer, have better returns, less churn, which is kind of the name of the game for them, right?
Oh, amen. I mean, shout out. We had a fabulous project with the Ritz-Carlton. Their agency of record is Team One out of Southern California. And one of the things we were able to ascertain in doing a deep dive analysis of Ritz-Carlton's segmentation was the difference in booking behavior of each of the primary revenue generating segments. And Chris, they varied from 11 months at one to 30 days at the other end. So you can't present an email to someone that's going to take 11 months to make a decision and then expect that they're going to get a reservation in a week. And similarly, somebody that likes to book in 30 days, you could tee that up 6 months in advance. They're still not going to act on it, right? They don't know that they have to be in Boston next week, right? So they're going to make a decision predicated on actual events. So one of the things we did is just equip Team One with all of the intelligence that we were able to gather based on the segmentation, buying, and booking behavior And they took the lead to say, hey, we need to create custom landing pages for each of these different segments. And if we know that Chris buys this way and we know he takes a 1 week vacation every year and he goes to the same property, then let's set up a landing page that looks like this. The other thing that we found is when we looked at the audiences, the classic Ritz-Carlton ad of 10 years ago was a white couple over 65 years old that were standing arm in arm on a beach somewhere. And we said, well, in looking at your data, roughly 72% of your past guests have a child 17 or younger in the household. Where's kids on stand-up paddleboards? Where is ads, promoting Ritz kids? Where's somebody building a sandcastle on the beach? Where's a family, skiing down the mountain together? And that dramatically increased their click and open rates just by having the data. We weren't doing the creative, we weren't doing the media buying, but now all of a sudden they actually increased their revenue with the client because of opening up all these new channels, all of this new creative development, all this new media placement that they could serve based on the understanding of the purchase behaviors of the guest segments.
That makes sense, and making everything so much more powerful. I'm curious, Jim. So given that you guys are really a data and a tech play, how what does the client acquisition strategy look like for you all? Are you going after brands individually, or are you focused more on agencies? Yeah, help me understand that piece.
Yeah, we don't approach agencies directly. Typically, we look at the client to bring all the partners together and sit at the table. Our growth strategy has been really through the opportunity to speak at conferences and conventions where we're asked to play a part, talk about what we're doing with data, networking, referrals, word of mouth. We're small. We're only 15 folks. And so for us, we have a scalable model here with limitations, right? And so we've been very fortunate to work with state tourism offices, large regional tourism offices, great hotel and resort brands that, as I mentioned, Ritz and others that of, Marriott, that have all come from relationship development or conferences and the like. So that's been our growth strategy. We don't put a lot of money in the lead gen strategy, or at least as an approach, primarily just because with 15 people, we can only take on so much work.
So a little bit of a quality game, focus on servicing really high level clients, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I say this with the utmost respect. We've got a lot of fabulous competition in the marketplace. Not everybody does what we do. Some do things that are similar. We think we've got some clear and distinct points of differentiation. But that said, I think that most of the time it's easier for us to develop a relationship when the client brings RMG and their agency partner to the table. Everyone's roles are defined. And then we have an opportunity to hopefully, as a result of a great agency relationship that we're having, that agency might turn to us on another client that they have and say, hey, we've got somebody else in our portfolio that we think could really benefit from what you guys are doing. Those are fabulous relationships for us, Chris, where it really proves out the fact that, we're not out here to take more than our share. We're out here to help all of the different people that are sitting around the table.
That makes sense. Getting ready to wrap up here, Jim. For other agency owners that are listening that may have heard something or felt like they're leaving something on the table with their clients that might be able to leverage more data, what would be your words of advice for that?
Well, I would tell you that I think the biggest challenge that we face, to be very candid, Chris, is that a lot of times when we're talking to a client or an agency executive, a lot of people are still afraid of data, and it can be overwhelming. And I think that's one of the challenges of AI. I think it's for those, especially those later in their career, and I'll raise my hand and say, I'm one of those people, that you can be intimidated by what you don't know. And people start talking about AI and predictive modeling and, nested something in, so I'm lost. There's people that are way smarter at this. My team is way smarter on these things than I am. But I think that someone that's open and willing to embrace what exists in the marketplace for their benefit, rather than to keep it at arm's length and say, I don't understand it. And I'm either in the twilight of my career or I've got other people on my team that I will ask to, step in. I think that recognizing it isn't something to be all of that intimidated by, and we can make it pretty simple. We as practitioners of marketing, certainly it can sound way more complicated than it is, but I think that being willing to at least open and dialogue and have the conversation about the role of data analytics and not be intimidated. Again, we've been doing this for 39 years. And it really hasn't changed. Customer segmentation today is the same that customer segmentation was 39 years ago. And so while AI allows you to be able to sort data in a blink of an eye, whereas it would take us 3 days to do a large customer file in the past, apart from that, data is still data.
That makes sense. And I think every huge or large company that's doing anything in the market today, they have data analytics or they have that role. So it's almost like you guys can come in and be the data analytic role for some of these agencies, some of these other marketers that maybe don't have that in house.
I love that. So I'll take every referral you want to give me from some agencies that are willing to do that. But no, I think you're right. I mean, again, we would love to, and it used to be more a part of our lead gen strategy is to partner with agencies. But I find that some of the folks are just fearful that we have 40, 50, 60% of our revenue base comes from media. And if these guys say, oh, that's not working, or you need to cut out that channel, that's a hit we're going to take in top line revenue. And I think that's not necessarily the furthest thing from the truth. We're not out here to do that. So what I'd like to do is welcome your listeners, anybody else from an agency side, to say, we have just as many agency partners that have embraced the model and said, you're only making us more effective. And the points that you hit on, the length of our relationships are expanding because we're bringing value to the table. And RMG doesn't want our piece of the pie. I don't do copywriting, or, we don't do art direction or anything along those lines. We don't buy anything related to media. So we leave that to the people who know it far better than we do.
If anybody wants to learn more about anything we chatted about here today, where can they find you?
So our website is obviously our primary landing spot. And that's www.rmg, as in Robert Mary George, rmg-usa.com.
Awesome. And we'll make sure and link that in the show notes. Thanks so much, Jim.
Thank you, Chris.